Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unravel the mysteries lurking in the shadows and explore the stories that send shivers down your spine. From unsolved crimes to paranormal encounters, from eerie legends to the unknown, we're here to take you on a journey into the unexplained. Every story has layers, and every layer brings us closer to the truth, or deeper into the mystery. So grab a seat, turn down the lights, and get ready to dive into the unknown. This is the Deep Dive.
Remember that feeling? You know, being the smartest one in the room.
High school, right?
Yeah, maybe not since then, probably. But what if there was something, I don't know, a million times smarter than any of us? That's what we're going to be diving into today. Artificial superintelligence, or ASI.
Is this how we create our own successors?
Exactly. Like, are we about to become John Connor's parents?
Oh, hopefully without the whole robot apocalypse.
Metaphorically speaking, of course. So for this deep dive, you guys sent in some really interesting stuff. And of course, that Eric Schmidt interview.
Always love his take, especially on anything AI.
Right. Former Google CEO, he's got some strong opinions on where this whole thing is headed.
Yeah, and it's not science fiction anymore. This is a real conversation happening in labs, boardrooms, even the halls of government.
Okay, so less Star Wars, more real-world implications. So it's not just about computers getting faster, crunching numbers. What is ASI, and why is everyone suddenly so obsessed?
It's a fundamental shift in intelligence itself. Think of it like this. We humans, we're at the top right now when it comes to general intelligence here on Earth. We adapt, learn, invent. But ASI, it wouldn't just be smarter, it would be a whole different category of intelligence.
Okay, so not just beating us at chess, but inventing a whole new game we can't even understand. Give me a starting point here. How did we even get on this path to ASI?
Believe it or not, the story starts, get this, over 500 million years ago with a humble flatworm.
Hold on, flatworms, those little squirmy things? I wouldn't trust them to solve a maze, let alone take over the world.
Hear me out, hear me out. They were the first creatures, the very first, to evolve a centralized brain. It wasn't much, just a cluster of neurons, but it was a start. And from there, life just took off, this incredible journey with intelligence evolving along the way.
Okay, pretty wild to think about. But I'm guessing my brain has a bit more going on than a flatworm's. What was the real game changer?
For millions of years, intelligence was largely what you'd call narrow, like a tool designed for one specific job.
So the document argues that for millions of years, intelligence was basically just this survival tool. You needed enough brain power to, find food and not get eaten, and that was about it.
Right, because intelligence is costly from an evolutionary standpoint.
So if your brain's too big, you're using up all your energy just thinking.
Exactly. For most of Earth's history, it was all about specialized intelligence. Being really good at one particular thing, perfect for a specific environment, but not super adaptable.
It's like a hammer, great for nails, not so much for,
Brain surgery.
Okay, yeah.
Animals evolved just enough brain power to survive in their environment. Take birds, for example. A robin can build a perfect robin's nest every time. Ask it to build something different. Clueless.
This is like my dog's great at fetching, not so much at writing the next best-selling novel.
Exactly.
But then, around 7 million years ago, things start to shift, right? Our ancestors, the hominins, their brains start evolving in a different direction.
They get bigger, more complex.
And then boom, a couple million years later, you've got Homo erectus. And they're not just interacting with the world, they're starting to understand it, to shape it.
Tools, fire, language. That's where it all began.
So instead of just reacting to the environment, we could actually imagine different possibilities.
Precisely. We became generalists. Instead of a hammer, we were suddenly a Swiss Army knife.
Oh, I like that.
That's the power of general intelligence.
Yeah.
And it's what ultimately led to us.
So I'm already seeing this parallel here to the early days of AI. In the 1960s, you've got these rudimentary AIs, very single task oriented.
Right, kind of like our flatworm friends back in the primordial soup.
And then over the next few decades, things start to evolve. AI can navigate a room. It can even read numbers.
But it was still very much dependent on humans, right? We had to break down these problems into smaller, more manageable chunks for the AI to process.
So it wasn't really thinking for itself.
Not even close. But then things start to change drastically. Late 20th, early 21st century, we see this explosion in computing power. And that, my friend, is the game changer.
Because suddenly we had the resources to build much more sophisticated systems.
Exactly. And that brings us to the real star of the show, machine learning.
Which is?
It's not just about hand coding instructions anymore. We're talking about creating AIs that can write their own code, learn and improve in ways we don't fully grasp.
So it's like teaching a computer how to learn instead of just what to do.
In a very simplified nutshell, yes.
Yeah,
And that's when we get that AlphaGo moment from the document, right? Remember that?
vaguely.
It was huge. AlphaGo, this AI developed by Google, goes head-to-head with a world champion Go player back in 2016, and it wins.
No way. A computer beat a human at Go. Isn't that like the most complex game ever?
One of them, yeah. And up until that point, it was thought that a computer could never beat a human at Go. Too many possibilities, too much intuition involved. But AlphaGo changed everything.
I guess that's when people really started to pay attention.
Absolutely. This machine learning stuff is not some abstract concept. You see it everywhere in your life now.
Yeah.
Facial recognition, personalized recommendations, even those eerily accurate YouTube suggestions.
Okay, yeah, those YouTube algorithms, they definitely know me better than I know myself sometimes. It's kind of creepy, actually.
It's getting smarter all the time.
And then there's ChatGPT, which feels like the poster child for this new wave of AI. I mean, it's everywhere.
It's a great example of what we're talking about.
It's not just playing Go. It's like it's learning to play the entire game of life.
And what's interesting about ChatGPT is that it's not just mastering one thing, right? It's not just playing chess or writing code. This thing can write, summarize, translate, you name it. It can even generate different creative text formats. Poems, code, scripts, musical pieces, emails, letters, etc.
It's like the Swiss Army knife of AI.
It's pretty incredible stuff. But, and this is a big but, it's still what we call narrow AI, meaning it doesn't truly understand the text that it's generating.
So it's like a parrot mimicking human language without actually grasping the meaning.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay, so that's where we are now. We've gone from basic AI to something that feels, I don't know, different.
Different is one word for it, yeah. And the question everyone's asking is, what happens when AI isn't narrow anymore? What happens when we achieve?
Artificial general intelligence. AGI.
Dun, 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 dun.
And should we be excited about that? Terrified? Should I be buying stock in NVIDIA, as Eric Schmidt seems to suggest?
It's the holy grail, right? AGI. An AI with the flexibility, the problem-solving skills of a human. But potentially, and this is the key, much, much faster.
Okay, so we're not talking about data from Star Trek here. This isn't just a smarter computer. It's something else entirely.
It's a whole different ballgame. Like a million AGIs, all working 24/7, 10 times faster than any human scientist.
It's kind of hard to wrap your head around, right?
It really is. Makes you feel like, what are we even doing with our lives?
Right, like we're stuck in first gear. But okay, so let's say we do get to this AGI future. What does that actually look like?
Well, on the one hand, you've got the potential for incredible progress. I mean, imagine curing diseases, solving climate change, unlocking scientific mysteries that we can't even fathom right now.
Sign me up for that future. Where do I invest?
Right. But then there's the flip side. What happens when that kind of intelligence is applied to things like, I don't know, autonomous weapons, viruses,
Okay, yeah, suddenly I'm picturing the Terminator.
or even just like creating tech that's so addictive, so perfectly tailored to our individual desires that we can't look away from our screens. We're not talking about like doom and gloom science fiction here. These are real ethical questions we need to be thinking about right now.
And it sounds like Eric Schmidt thinks things are moving even faster than we realize.
Oh, he's definitely in the fast lane. He seems convinced that some major breakthroughs are right around the corner. One thing he's particularly excited about is the development of what he calls larger context windows for AI.
Context windows. Is that like a technical term?
Basically, it's like giving AI a bigger working memory, allowing it to process information in a way that's closer to how humans do it.
So instead of just spitting back facts, it can actually like understand the context.
That's the idea. Schmidt seems to think these larger context windows are key to AI actually thinking more like us.
And he mentioned AI agents being able to like test out chemistry hypotheses overnight.
Can you imagine the pace of discovery if that becomes a reality?
It'd be insane. Like all those scientific breakthroughs that used to take decades, now happening in a matter of hours.
Exactly. And Schmidt thinks this is just the tip of the iceberg. He envisions a future where AI programming tools are as common as, like, smartphones, allowing anyone, regardless of their technical skills, to build complex applications with simple commands.
So it's like giving everyone on the planet a superpower.
It's both exhilarating and a little terrifying.
But we'd figure it out, right? I mean, humanity's pretty good at adapting.
We like to think so. But let's not forget about the sheer amount of money being poured into this field. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars from governments and corporations alike. It's an intelligence arms race, essentially.
And the craziest part is we don't even fully understand what we're creating. It's like Schmidt said, comparing advanced AI to teenagers, we know they're human, but good luck figuring out how their minds work.
The black box problem. We can feed these AIs massive amounts of data, see the incredible things they can do, but we don't always know how they arrive at their conclusions.
It's like we've given the keys to the car to someone who aced their driving test, but we have no idea if they actually understand the rules of the road.
A recipe for disaster, some might say.
And to make things even weirder, Schmidt mentioned something about adversarial AI.
Yes. He was talking about companies actually hiring other companies to try and break their own AI systems. Can you believe that? Almost like AI quality control.
It's an interesting approach. Schmidt argues that we might need to create specialized AI systems, almost like digital immune systems. And their sole purpose, to probe, to test other AIs, looking for vulnerabilities, biases, even potentially dangerous behaviors. So basically, build an AI whose job is to try and break other AIs. That sounds both terrifying and strangely reassuring at the same time, like a digital version of those crash test dummies they use for cars.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Because just like with those crash tests, the goal is to identify weaknesses and improve safety standards before something goes wrong in the real world.
Makes sense. But you mentioned something earlier about the geopolitical side of this. If AGI is this big of a deal, surely countries are going to be, jockeying for position.
Absolutely. Schmidt highlights that the race to develop AGI, it has huge geopolitical implications. This isn't just about technological advancement, it's about economic and military dominance in a world that's increasingly shaped by AI.
So we're talking about a potential AI arms race that doesn't exactly fill me with confidence.
It's a valid concern, it is.
Yeah.
And it just underscores the need for international cooperation, transparency in AI development, which, let's be honest, is a whole other can of worms.
Well, it definitely makes you think. We're already struggling to deal with misinformation created by humans.
What happens when AI becomes vastly better at it? That's the million-dollar question. And it leads us to one of the most important takeaways from this whole conversation.
So we've gone from, flatworms to superintelligence, from Google to Go. And the thing that blows my mind is that this isn't some distant future, right? This is all happening right now.
This is happening as we speak. And I think the biggest takeaway here, the thing I really want listeners to walk away with, is that this isn't about if these advancements are coming. It's about how you were going to handle them.
Yeah, because we can't just put the genie back in the bottle, can we?
Exactly. So the big question is, can we make sure AGI is used for good? Can we actually control something that might eventually be smarter than us?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Feels like we're building a rocket to Mars, but haven't quite figured out the whole oxygen situation yet.
Right? Well said. And this is where you, our listeners, come in. We've thrown a lot of information at you today, but the most important voice in all of this is yours.
We want to know what you think. Seriously, hit us up on all the socials. What impact will AGI have on your life in the next 10 years?
Is this the dawn of some incredible new era for humanity?
Or are we about to open a Pandora's box?
Leave us your thoughts, your questions, your wildest predictions, because honestly, these are questions we all need to grapple with.
That's right. This conversation is far from over, and honestly, we learn the most from smart listeners like you. So until next time, keep those brain cells firing and happy diving.
And that's a wrap for this episode of The Deep Dive. I hope you enjoyed today's exploration into today's mystery, and that it gave you some valuable insights to think about. If you found this episode helpful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on all our future deep dives. As always, thanks for diving deep with us today. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.